All right. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me now? All right. Anybody out there? Can you hear me now? Okay, great, fantastic. People can hear. All right. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to resend out the URL. Where on earth is it? But yeah. All right, fantastic. Oh, Drawn of History. Fantastic to see you all here. Yeah, I had some technical difficulties a little bit ago, but it looks like things are now working. Fantastic, fantastic. All right. Let me just resend out a tweet for the working link now. Boop-a-doop-boo. We are live. All right. Thank you all for coming here. First stream of the year. Haven't put out a proper video yet this year, but that is all right. How are you guys' Christmases and New Year's have been? It's been a while. How have you guys' years going so far? Mine was going pretty well until a few minutes ago. Then it got better again. All right. Okay, so the reason I called this live stream is I wanted to go over the survey results. So late last year, I sent out an audience survey wanting to ask you guys questions about the content and the channel, you know, like, so in order to help guide my content creation over the coming year. What kinds of videos I should make, how I should make them, what do I need to improve on, etc., etc., as well as some other business-related questions. Well, not only are we going to be looking at this last one, but I want to compare the results of the 2021 audience survey and the 2020 audience survey, because a lot of the same questions, in fact, I would say a majority of the questions in the 2021 survey were also asked in the 2020 survey. And so I can sort of compare the results of those. And of course, there are some questions from the 2020 survey that are no longer on the 2021 survey. And of course, questions on the 2021 survey that weren't on the 2020 survey. God, numbers. Anyways. So, without further ado, let's start with some of these comparisons. Let me switch scene. Hopefully, OBS decides to work. And doop-a-doop-boop-boo. And okay, good. Yes, it is working on your guys' end too. Fantastic. It took a couple minutes. It took like a little bit to change for me to see, but yes, okay. All right, so let's go over the first question that the two surveys have in common. That being, do you follow Casual Historian / Grant Hurst on any of the following platforms? So in 2020, about 18% of you were saying, just under 19% were saying you followed one of my accounts on Twitter. In 2020, or 2021, that went down to 15%, which, granted smaller, but the number of respondents is also significantly higher, almost double. So, yeah, so it's not much difference. So the number of people who follow on Twitter didn't go down much even when you double the size of the respondents. Of course, I've never taken a statistics class, but I know, of course, you have to take a whole bunch of things into consideration, such as, if you, especially for something like this, it's like, well, the only people who are filling out this survey are like a hardcore dedicated audience types. So this survey is mostly going to reflect what the hardcore fans of the channel want. And that's still a useful barometer, but, it's just something that you have to keep in mind. See, so between 2020 and 2021, the number of people who follow on Facebook have gone up. Have gone up a bit by about a 50% increase there, so that's nice. On Instagram, it's gone up as well. And those who don't follow any have also gone up. But that's kind of to be expected if you're doubling the response rate. Let's see. Looks like we got a super chat from Cold Summer 91. Is it true Irish were enslaved here before Africans? Maybe you could do a video on this topic. Let's see. Now so the concept of the Irish were enslaved too is sort of kind of overblown. It's mostly that the Irish were first brought to the Americas as indentured servants. The exact year they were brought, I can't tell you, but I know indentured servitude was legally distinct from slavery in many ways, and that's probably a video. If someone else doesn't have one, it would be worth making one myself if someone else doesn't already have it, and I would be surprised if it doesn't exist. But the big difference is that the big thing to take from this whole point of the Irish were enslaved before, and even if they were, indentured servitude was not as bad as actual slavery. I'm really surprised that the people who try to focus on the white slavery thing don't talk more about the Arab slave trade, especially with the North African corsairs kidnapping Christians, sailing in the Mediterranean, and even going as far out as Iceland and kidnapping Christians and taking them back to North Africa as slaves. If they wanted to talk about white slavery, that's what you would actually want to talk about, not, indentured Irish servants. But yeah, so that's that chestnut. All right, so back to this thing. So yeah, that's an interesting point. So it's relatively unchanged, very minor changes, and I'm actually surprised how small the changes were, despite the fact that the response rate to the survey was double this last year than it was the year before. If we go to the second question that they both have in common, what area of video production do I need to improve in? And there was a bit of change here. So, once again, similar, about double the number of responses. In 2020, so back in 2020, the thing people thought I needed to improve in most was on-screen performance. But in 2022, the thing I needed to improve most in, most people think, is audio. Now, personally, I think audio is the area in which I have improved the most over last year, but I don't know. I mean, this is what surveys are for. I guess you widen the net. This is one of the areas where widening the net of responses did, in fact, change the outcome of the results. Let's see. Second place last time was on. So, whereas in 2020, number one was on-screen performance, followed by audio. This time it's audio, followed by on-screen performance. Then in a distant third, it was editing, whereas in 2020, editing was a fairly close third place, followed by a more distant writing and an even further distant filming. So things shifted around a bit in 2021, which is interesting. I have to take into consideration that audio is one of the things I've become more and more concerned about as time has gone on. Let's see here. Let's go to the next question they have in common, which is the type of videos the audience prefers. In 2020, 57 to 42, so basically just about 60-40, people preferred videos that were in series more so than standalone videos, or at least returning audiences prefer series-based videos than standalone, which is very much understandable. It's similar to like a TV show, where long-running TV shows, the fans of long-running TV shows like having shows that have like continuity kind of stuff. And I think that's similar for people watching a YouTube channel. They like seeing a continuity, like even in those like bigger video essay type people where they insert an entire narrative within a story talking about a thing. They like some kind of that. But in 2021, this narrowed a bit, 53-46. So, it's closer. People still prefer videos that are part of a series, but standalone videos seem to have gotten a little more strength when widened the audience a bit. Let's see. All right, go to the next question here. Interesting. How long do you prefer videos to be? This is something I'm always worried about because I've had this nasty habit lately of making my videos longer and longer. Sometimes unintentionally, because I research a bunch of stuff and then I put it all out on the page, and then you try to edit stuff out, but it's like, I don't know if I can tell this whole story without this extra piece of information here, which is why the last few videos have all been like over 30 minutes long. And so I might have to adjust this thing here because I had 3 categories of videos. Videos that are under 10 minutes, videos that are 10 to 20, and videos that are 20 minutes or more. I might have to adjust this to under 10 minutes, 10 to 30 minutes, and then 30 plus. So anyways, these are, they came in the same places, but the percentages have changed a bit. So in 2020, almost 60% preferred videos that were 10 to 20 minutes. In contrast to that with 2021, where a larger portion of the audience, where just under a majority wanted videos that were 10 to 20 minutes. And so basically the biggest difference is that the people who want videos that are longer, 20 minutes or more, have gone up by 10% in those two within a year, which is something interesting there. So perhaps my trend towards videos that were around 30-ish minutes is the right way to go. Let's see, for the next topic, what video topics do you want me to cover in the future? I think I'm going to not cover this one so much in this review, mostly because I went through them earlier and a lot of them are very much the same. And I think I need to rephrase this question in future ones because I need to make it not an open question. Because, of course, you can see here some people put multiple subjects they want covered or don't know. So I think I need to rephrase this in a way that makes it easier for people to answer in a way that I can make the data useful to myself. All right, let's see. Future video topics. And when I look at the next question here they have in common, what's your favorite YouTube channel excluding Casual Historian? Similar issue with this one. I made it a little too open. I still need to have a free answer here, but I think I should specify just name one in the future, because some of these, they go and they mention a bunch and it's like that defeats the purpose when I ask for favorite. So, yeah. It looks like people followed the assignment better in 2021 than they did in 2020, but that's something I'm going to have to look at for the 2022 audience survey, which will come out sometime in the last quarter of this year. So expect an audience survey to be released for this year sometime in between October and December. Yeah, so let's see here. The next question after superlatives, have you ever financially supported a creator on YouTube? This, of course, question was for business purposes. For me, it's like, okay, what is like, if I want to turn the YouTube channel into a successful business, I need to find out, okay, what are potential revenue streams? What areas should I focus on? And so this is one of the part of the things here. It's like, okay, a successful YouTube business requires a certain amount of audience loyalty. So it's like, okay, let's see where the audience is on this. And so people who have, so yeah. Have you ever financially supported a creator on YouTube? Click all that apply. So in 2020, a majority, of course, 56% said they either can't or don't want to. Whereas in the 2021 survey, that went down by about 4%. So 52% say they either can't or don't want to. So it's still a majority, but it's a slightly smaller majority. In 2020, those who support somebody on Patreon or Subscribestar was about 19%, so about 20%, versus 23% have done so in 2021, which is nice to see. All right, so it looks like we got a super chat from John Collins. Have you ever done a video on the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the recipients of it, and your thoughts of the award? I have not done a video about that subject. I'm not opposed to it, but it's something I'm going to have to look into before I can have a fuller opinion on it. Because at the moment, I don't have too strong of an opinion on the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It's like I just know that's where kind of like that Obama meme of Obama awarding Obama, Obama giving Obama a medal meme comes from, which is funny enough because like that picture looks more real than the actual picture, which is Obama giving this medal to some military person, which is because like you've seen the meme more often than you've seen the actual original photo, which is kind of hilarious. It's like that situation where a parody of a song becomes more popular than the original. It's like there's a ton of songs that like I've heard the Weird Al version, the Weird Al parody of it more than I heard the original. And so it's one of those chestnuts. So yeah. So anyways, after Patreon and Subscribestar, we've seen the rate for people who donate on PayPal has stayed the same despite a higher number. Those who bought a product or service, only about 8.5% in 2020, but over 13% in 2021. So about over a 50% increase there. Bought something through an Amazon affiliate link or from their Amazon wish list, which is a little higher. So and that's basically it for most of these things. It's a little higher. Basically, the only thing that's lower is like people who don't support, which is great to see. Even if they're not supporting me, the fact that they're supporting other creators is still great to see. So for continuing on for questions, we've seen both surveys. The 2020 survey, how many books do you read a year? In 2021, the 58% of you read 10 or fewer, which is down in 2020, 58% of you read 10 or fewer books a year, whereas in 2021, it's 53%. So that's down by about 5%, which is good. That means you guys are reading more. Reading is good, kids. The number of people who read 11 to 30 books a year has gone up slightly, about 2%. And the people who read 30 plus books a year has gone up by about 3%, which is very good. So good. More people reading is good. I encourage reading. That's one of the few things my grandmother beat into me and my cousins every summer. We'd go to her house during every summer our parents would drop us off at our grandmother's house, and my grandmother was a former school teacher. And so you always had two options. You could either go outside and do yard work, or you could read inside. I chose to stay and read inside because Central California in the middle of summer is not fun. All right, down to the next one. What is your level of education? And in 2020, the highest, there's a tie between those who either have some college, either an associate's degree or they haven't graduated yet, and those who have a bachelor's degree or higher. So basically, over 70% of the audience is either in college or has a college degree. In contrast, I modified the question a bit in 2021 because there was some distinction for some things that I didn't put in before. So I clarified some of these questions here. So 41% of my audience in 2021 has a bachelor's degree or higher, which is up. 33%, about 34%, are in college. They have some college education, either an associate's degree or they haven't graduated yet. Let's see. Those who have a high school diploma or GED, that went down from 15% to about 12.8, so about 2% drop there. Not a huge drop, but noticeable, at least in these. And the number of people who are still in high school or younger is down by 9.5, is down by about a single percentage point. And I added an additional category to the 2021 version of the question, which I added technical or training school. You know, for something that's not college, but it's more than high school, but it's not college. So I thought I wanted to cover stuff like that. And that's about 2.5% there. See, extra question for John Collins down here. Now, does reading mean actual books or audiobooks? Well, in my survey, I didn't make a distinction between the two because I don't think I don't think it's important. Or I don't think the distinction is nearly as important. You know, people are different types of learners in different situations. You know, like I am very much like, I know some people will claim auditory learner isn't really a thing, and I would agree with them in that there's nobody who's like a certain type of learner across the board. But I know for me, like a lot of history stuff, I am definitely an auditory learner when it comes to history, and so I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I also listen to a lot of podcasts, and that's where I get a lot of ideas for videos. So yeah, so that's the education level. So overall, the audience is a bit more educated this coming year than it was the year prior, which is always good, which is a good thing. Okay, so here's one question that's only on the 2020 survey and not on the 2021 survey. Would you visit a casual historian Discord? I think Shen Partey asked that question a little bit ago. So, in 2020, about 40% of you said maybe. almost 36% said no. And then about 24% said yes. Well, after consulting with some other creators and watching like the Trash Days podcast, I came to the decision that I will open a Discord server, but that Discord server is reserved for members of my Patreon page. So there is a Discord server available if you want, but you have to become a member of the Patreon for at least $1 a month. That is how you get access to that. One of the reasons for having paid access to a Discord server is basically kind of a filter for helping you control a Discord server. You know, there are horror stories out there about, you know, Discord servers can be horribly unruly. And so a very natural filter for maintaining control of a Discord server is something like a pay to enter kind of thing. And so that's what I did. I put in I made Patreon as a requirement to get on to the server. But, at $1 a month, you get access to all that stuff, and it becomes just another place to hang out, talk with me, and shoot the shit. I don't do audio conversations very much on Discord. I haven't entered into that realm yet, but it serves as a nice little extra platform for the community to share stuff and talk to each other if they wanted to. All right, so moving on to the next question. Are you religious? Choose the closest to your own. And so something I noticed, like, someone pointed out a problem to me. And, yeah, so someone pointed out to me when I did the 2021 survey that I forgot to put Jewish as a possible answer, and which is hilarious because the video in which I announced the existence of the survey was in one of my Jewish history videos, so that was kind of embarrassing. So I went back and edited that to add Jewish as an option. And so there's going to be a bunch of people who put other or some kind of other religion and then wrote down Jewish because I didn't have it as an option. And as it turns out, I didn't have it as an option in the 2020 survey either. So that's, that's my B. So when we look at both, the largest section for both 2020 and 2021 are those who are either atheist or agnostic. And the number actually went up from about 34% to nearly 40%. So that's the biggest one, those who are not affiliated with religion. Followed by Roman Catholics in 2020. But in 2021, the next largest group was those who were of other religion. The next biggest number past that for 2020 was other religion. So yeah, that's interesting stuff here. Unfortunately, this graph isn't, the way they formatted it in Google Forms isn't the best to look at right here, but it's mostly the biggest ones you need to look at. And of course, atheist and agnostic look the biggest because it's the least defined groups. I didn't try to differentiate between atheists and agnostics and various other kinds of ways you could identify as. And of course, I put a bunch of different options for Christians and even a couple options for Muslims. So, yeah. So those were always going to look smaller just due to the way they were umbrellaed. All right. So the next question was about the political compass quiz. It's like, if you have taken the political compass test, which quadrant did you fall into? Either most recent or most consistent result if taken more than once. So in 2020, the largest group was those who fell into the libertarian left. So libertarian left was the biggest group in 2020. And in 2021, the biggest group was libertarian right. In fact, the libertarian right went up by about 10 points in a year, whereas the libertarian left went down by about a point. Those who identified as those who fell into the authoritarian right category fell in representation from about 12.7% to 9.6%, so about 3-point drop right there. See, we saw an increase in those, or we saw a decrease. So in 2020, about a quarter of you guys had not taken the test, whereas in 2021, that was down to about 21%. So about 1 in 5 of you guys. And then finally, the authoritarian left was the smallest group in 2020 at 5.6%. And they went down to 3.7%. So about a 2-point drop for authoritarian left, which shouldn't be a surprise. The nature of my channel and the nature of my content, I constantly poke at the authoritarian left. So, yeah. All right. And then for if you have a bachelor's degree or higher, or if you are currently in college, what is your major? This is another one in which I think I'm going to have to rephrase the question in the future to make, or for me to acquire more, like, to acquire better data. It's like I might have to get less specific in the future and just say, okay, are you humanities, history, social sciences, or STEM or something like that in the future. Let's see. Let me check the chat real quick. Bold Cheddar. Wait, can someone catch me up? I'm a bit late. Hello, Bold Cheddar. Well, what's happening right now is I'm going over the audience survey results. So in 2020 and 2021, I sent out audience surveys for people to take, and they could tell me stuff about the channel, what kind of content they like, and what kind of content they think I should make in the future, as well as stuff about like the length of a video and some demographic information as well. And now we're going over it. We are currently at the bachelor's degree or higher, basically what your major is in college, if you have a degree or not. And yeah, this is another one I'm going to have to rephrase it to make the data more usable. But we have stuff here like history, chemistry, math, physics, mechanical engineering, computer science, medical degree, economics, business, more history, law, engineering, business, arts and humanities, hospitality. And you get the same kind of hodgepodge of stuff in, for 2021 as well. So I'm going to have to rephrase that question in 2020. Yeah, I'm going to have to rephrase that question for 2022 to make it a bit more usable for me. So, All right, let's see. And that about does it for all the questions that are on both. There is one other question that's going to kind of connect to the rest of the ones that are on the 2021 survey. At the top of the 2020 survey, I asked, have you ever been to casualhistorian.com? And about 75% of you said no. 25% of you said yes. Well, I didn't include that question on the 2021 survey because casualhistorian.com no longer exists. Let's see, hold on. Looks like we got a question. All right, another super chat from Cold Summer 91. What are the chances of seeing World War III in the 2020s? I don't think World War III is very likely, to be honest. At least World War III would not look like any previous World War because we have the ability to destroy each other. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see... We won't recognize what World War III would look like, I think. So, anyways, so back to this first question here. Have you ever been to casualhistorian.com? And that question is not included in the 2021 survey because there is no casualhistorian.com anymore. Yeah, so back in June, I basically shut it down, stopped paying for the hosting service, and now I just have the URL that I can use and bring back at any time. I would like to bring the website back, but at the moment, it's just kind of, I feel like my creative energy and resources are better used on growing the channel and making the videos better and growing the business that way. Because at the moment, there's just nothing really there wasn't really much way to make money off of casualhistorian.com. And some of the other results in this survey will bring you to that as we get to some of those questions. So now that we don't really have much to talk about on the Casual Historian, the 2020 survey, we can now focus on the 2021 survey. So let's see if I move myself down over here. We can see this question here. Which of the following platforms do you use? YouTube is obviously going to be the one you most use, and though what I'm surprised is there's 276 responses to this, and only 274 of them say they use YouTube. Where else are you following me? Where else are you like, what else are you following my content on? So anyways, so yeah, almost 100% of you are using YouTube. About 31% of you are using Twitter. 27%, 28% are using Facebook. About another 28% are using Discord. 33% are using Instagram. About 12% are using Twitch. 2.2% are using Tumblr for some reason. About 6.5% are using TikTok. 2% are using Reddit, and then a bunch of other ones that I'm guessing a single person added all of these extra ones, including Pornhub. Let's see. Shen Partey asks, what are the possibilities of a second civil war happening in America? And where did the idea of a second American Civil War come from? Gosh. There are multiple sources for the possibility of a second civil war. Like, obviously, shortly after the first civil war, people started talking about a second civil war. Like, after the 1876 election, there was talks about a second civil war. You know, like, people are talking about, oh, if, like, Samuel J. Tilden didn't win the 1876 election, the South might rise up again. It didn't, obviously. And there are even talks of, the North might rise up if Tilden did win. Because, Tilden would be seen as, like, being soft on the South and stuff. But, yeah, it's something I had to do a little more research for. But there's been on and off talks of a second civil war since the ending of the first one. Let's see. The next question for the 2021 survey. When on YouTube, where do you usually look for new videos to watch? Yeah, so I don't have any data to compare this with previous years, but this question will be on future surveys. And a majority of you, about 2/3, go to the subscription feed. And the reason I ask this is because despite the fact that the subscription feed is supposedly the most important feed for creators, we're always asking you to subscribe and press the bell, click the bell. Fact matter is, a vast majority of views on YouTube, and if you're a content creator, if you check your channel analytics, you'll find the subscription feed is usually one of the smallest sources for views. So basically, the fewest people are clicking onto videos from the subscription feed. Because it turns out most people aren't using the subscription feed. In fact, a lot of people, I think, confuse the subscription feed for other feeds. Like, they look at the homepage and think that that's their subscription feed. That happens to quite a few people. Especially to people who are not what you could call power users. And that turns out what the subscription feed is mostly used for. The subscription feed is mostly used by power users. And so creators often use it, but also power users on the channel in general, on the platform in general, are the ones that use it. And so the second most highest ranked is the home page. So basically they come onto YouTube and the first page they see is the home page, and that's where about 1/4 of the respondents claim that they find new videos to watch. The fourth source is suggested. Basically, when they're watching a video, they look at the suggested videos on the right side of the screen or below the video if it's on mobile, and that's where they find a new video to watch. And then the smallest are those who go to the trending/explore tab, which, yeah, doesn't surprise me much there. Let's see. Boop, 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 boop. Where's that next question? Okay, yeah, so if you are currently a supporter, if you currently support a YouTuber on Patreon, why? I needed to word this question better, because unfortunately the way I set up the question didn't give people the ability to skip it. So a lot of people have just said, yeah, that stuff's going to be a little more private, so I'm probably going to go past that. If you have ever bought merch from a creator, what was it? A lot of people, once again, I need to format the question in the Google Forms better next time to allow people the ability to skip it. But people say, stickers, shirts, swag, whatever that means here, t-shirts, cards, notebook, t-shirts, mugs, clothing, mostly shirts. Yeah, so it looks like shirts are the most common thing people buy from merch. So yeah, that's probably the direction to go for future merch, is mostly just shirts. That's probably the safest bet to go. Just have to find good designs that people actually want. Let's see. And, alright, so now we get on to the questions that ultimately made my decision to not start up a new casualhistorian.com. So when I was shutting down the casualhistorian.com, I was looking at setting up on a different web host. And before I did that, I didn't want to decide, okay, like, how much effort should I put into this? And these responses told me that it's probably not worth it right now. It's like, do you read blogs? Okay, so for this one, do you read blogs? Over 2/3 of you say no, and then sometimes for another quarter, with only 12% of you guys saying yes. So yeah, blogs not something you guys really care for. So I thought, okay, I probably don't want to restart this one right away. I might want to wait till a little later till I can monetize it better, and you can monetize stuff better when you're a bigger channel. And so, yeah, this is another instance of I didn't format the question in Google Forms correctly, so people couldn't skip it. If you do read blogs, which ones? But yeah, it's a bunch I've never heard of. But yeah, that's kind of to be expected. And then the question of podcasts. Do you listen to podcasts, and if so, where? And let's see, the largest number, 37%, say yes, and they do so on a dedicated podcasting app or platform. Now, I phrased the question like this because there are a lot of people who watch podcasts like on YouTube, and apparently, as I talk to some people, they watch it directly on the website, which is odd. I don't know many people personally who watch it like that, but it's a thing. Now, the second largest group after those who listen on dedicated apps are those who don't listen at all, at about a quarter of you guys. I don't know why Spotify is listed twice, but I think a bunch of people must have given their own answers, and for some reason they didn't solidify it. Another quarter of you guys watch podcasts either on YouTube or Twitch. I discovered a little while back that Twitch has a podcasting category that people can watch live, and that's what I put there. And then another 5% of you guys watch it on the original website. And then it's just a bunch of, for some reason they didn't, So that's something I have to do so in the future. And for this last question, if you do listen to podcasts, which ones? So yeah, it's like Revolutions. I've heard of that one. Way too many. I'm assuming that's just naming podcasts. Yeah, so in the future, I need to phrase this a little better, but this one I could actually have a little more use for. So I see the Revolutions comes up a number of times. Joe Rogan Experience comes up a number of times. Planet Money, Pod Save America, History of Rome, Ben Shapiro, Atlas Obscura, and a lot of different ones here. Dan Carlin comes up a number of times. So yeah, so that's about all I have for the survey this time around. I am going, like I said earlier, I'm going to do the survey again later this year, and we'll see what happens then. So I guess for now, let's, move to just a general Q&A. What do you guys want to know about my various projects for the coming year? I can answer other questions as well. So yeah, let's get to that part of the program. So, let's see. Electric Angel asks, is the history of the modern Middle East a halted series? The history of the modern Middle East is always in a state of being halted. I do have, let me show you something here I have on my desk. Hold on, let me move something out of the way. Yeah, some stuff out of the way here. So currently, for the History of the Modern Middle East podcast, I do have books with a bunch of note tabs in them. So I've done the research for the next episode, and I've even done a bit of research for the episode after that. But the problem for me has been finding time to actually do the writing for the episodes, especially when I'm trying to do so much for the channel itself. I might have more time to do it this year because, in the last few years, I've tried going to a weekly schedule numerous times. At the beginning of every year, I would be like, okay, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to start slow with every other week, and then sometime by in spring, I'll ramp up to a video every week for the rest of the year, and that just never works out. And so this year, I've decided to only do a video every other week. So every other Saturday, starting the last Saturday of January, there should be a video uploaded onto the channel. And so that is the general schedule for this year. Let's see. Now, let's see. Joe P. Really interesting history channel. Hope you get lots more subs. Well, thank you, Joe P. Shen Partey, have you read that QAnon book by Mike Rothschild? No, I have not read that book, but that is a brave man with that last name to write a book about conspiracy theorists. That is either brave or foolish, and I'm not sure which. Not sure which here. All right. Okay, so like I said before, any questions you guys want before we call it a night? I can keep going for a while longer since the stream had a false start, and I got through the survey quicker than I thought. Belladonna, what's the audience survey? Well, if you check the description of this video, it'll be the top thing that's linked. The audience survey is what I ask you guys all about things related to the channel, content I make, the way I make videos, etc. And it's all about helping guide my channel, my content creation for the next year. Shen Partey, thanks for answering my question about the Second Civil War, since the whole concept itself scares me. Yes, it's something, concerning. People on Twitter talking about, national divorce, which is just crazy. Sean Ugly, Zach Amico? What's Zach Amico? The name doesn't ring a bell. Daniel Nguyen Nguyen, I'm not sure. I think that's a Vietnamese or Southeast Asian last name. I'm not sure how it's supposed to be pronounced. Parkman Yuck. Yeah, you're right. David Parkman is Yuck. Let's see. Jumpy Killer QX. Where did the Israeli laser satellite come from as a concept? Oh, gosh. I know Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about it. There's this one, I think, Washington, D.C. or Maryland City Council member that talked about, like, Jews controlling the weather. That might be a contributing factor to it. See, Forza Jersey, are you... Super chat from Forza Jersey. Are you able to make a living on this channel? Currently, no. Currently, this is not my main source of... Currently, this is not my only source of revenue. I do have a regular day job, which ends up paying the taxes, because something you don't know about making money on YouTube is YouTube classifies every creator as a freelancer, which means they'll pay you, but they don't withhold taxes. And so you have to pay income taxes and Social Security taxes on that on April 15th. So, so my regular job ends up paying for that. Though it's funny, it's like I just did some tax information or tax stuff earlier, like a week or so ago, when looking for healthcare stuff, and I found that actually this last year I made more money from YouTube than my regular job, which is nice. It's a nice growth of the channel and the business. But YouTube revenue is not the only revenue I've got. So another super chat from Cold Summer. Will you do a video about Mormonism and its history? I do want to do videos about Mormonism. I have several video ideas on the block, but I just don't know exactly what to do first. So yeah, but I do want to do videos about Mormonism. Coach Fallen Founder, have you ever thought of having a debate panel series? I think people love to debate history, and you know other great creators to team with. I'm not much of a debate guy myself. Like, back in college, I may have been far more on the whole, debate me bro kind of atmosphere, especially back in my more political activist days, but I have fallen out of that. I have fallen out of that realm, and I don't wish to go back. Fact of the matter is, I find a lot of the debate me bros are kind of obnoxious. Shen Partey, the QAnon book by Mike Rothschild, debunks the conspiracy theory and tells the history of it and people who believe it. Yeah, it sounds like something it would do. I know there's that documentary series on HBO. HBO has a documentary series about it, like Down the Rabbit Hole or something it's called like that. Let's see. Electric Angel, still brave for a man named Rothschild to write that. Yep, it is. Sean Ugly. Oh, sorry, I thought you were Zach for a second. He resembles you. I don't know who Zach is, but okay, that's fine. Shen Partey, are there any new series for the channel coming out in 2022? Do I have any new series? None that I can name off the top of my head. Yeah, no, nothing. At least nothing that's intended to be a series in and of itself. I might have another really big video, one of those hour-plus long videos that might get turned into multiple videos. Like last year, or technically at the end of 2020, I had my series on the Holodomor, which, although I turned it into a series, it was originally supposed to be just one video, but it was too long to be one video, so I published it as multiple. If the only project I have this year that could be considered a series would be something similar to that. Let's see, Shen Partey, that director of the QAnon documentary, gave praise to the book. Ah, good, yeah, it sounds like he probably would have. Atomic Penguin, hello. Well, hello to you, Atomic Penguin. All right, Eglom123 History. Have you considered having more collaborations this year, and have you considered having outside contributors on your channel? Well, I'm not against collaborations, but I'm finding more, as a lot of us history channels start getting bigger, we end up having less time for we end up having less time for collaborations. In fact, that's something I noticed with a lot of bigger channels, that the bigger you get, the less time you have for collaborations. Now, I'm not so big that I could never possibly have time for collaborations, but it takes time, like especially like the big collaborations that you see that the history community do several times a year. Those take time to put together, especially for certain channels that take a lot longer to put out videos. So, yeah, I can't say... I have no planned collaborations, but I'm not against them either. So, yeah. Electric Angel, what captured your history fancy today? Something weird you just came across. Well, today I came across an idea for a short. I got a new idea for a short that I'll probably do. I was listening to an audiobook earlier today. It's called Pure Invention, How Japan Made the Modern World by Matt Alt. Yeah, I tweeted that book out at the Trash Taste podcast today, and the reason I got this idea, basically, it's for a short, but this neat historical fact basically is, you could thank/blame Ronald Reagan for anime in the U.S. And basically, you can thank/blame Ronald Reagan for the global popularity of anime. I know it's weird, right? Hold on, so I got a super chat from Forza Jersey. What historical period would you cover but haven't? I'm not sure. There's not many periods of time that I haven't covered that I want to cover. It's mostly stuff in those periods that I haven't covered yet. Like, I really want to make a video about Martin Luther, but I'm kind of waiting for the right moment. You know? Because I have a video about John Calvin, but not about Martin Luther, and that just feels yucky to me. For those of you who don't know, I am a Lutheran, so that's why, that's kind of a running joke for the channel. But so in the book, Pure Invention, from the book Pure Invention about how Japan shaped the modern world, you could basically make the argument that Ronald Reagan is responsible for the global popularity of anime today. And the reason why is that in 1982, the Reagan administration deregulated some aspects of children's television, namely what you're allowed to advertise on there. And with that came a new model for kids' TV shows, which is basically kids' TV shows that are the creation of which is funded by products for that show. So basically, it comes down to the existence of a TV show being dependent upon how much merch that show can sell. And that model of television had been present in Japan since the 1960s. But in the 1980s, the U.S. would import that when the FCC regulations were changed under the Reagan administration. Well, when those regulations were changed and now you could advertise more stuff to kids, suddenly there was this realization among American broadcasters like, oh, well, great, we can advertise this stuff, but we don't have any child-friendly IPs with, products ready to sell. But you know who did? Japan. Japan had a bunch of stuff, 20 years worth of different child-friendly animated television shows that had product lines that go with it. And so a lot of American networks started importing these pre-made shows in Japan. These shows that already have, a fully developed IP with fully animated shows and a product line that's already designed, and all you have to do is import it to the US, which is cheaper than developing new ideas in-house. And that is how the anime boom happened from the 80s up to the early 2000s. Let's see. So yeah, that's something I've interested in. That's something that caught my fancy today. Atomic Penguin, do you have a preferred economic school of thought? I'm very friendly to the Austrian school of thought. I'm very, very friendly with the Austrian stuff. So, your Hayek, your Mises, some Rothbard. I'm very friendly to that. Let's see, Shen Partey. So we can praise Reagan for Batman the Animated Series for that change with regulations? Yes, you can. Basically, any American show that's their business model is based on, okay, the show will continue so long as the merchandise for that show sells. You can basically thank, or at least any children's targeted show that's based on the sale of merchandise, you can thank the Reagan administration for. So yes, so it's another one of these things where it's like people, like we're seeing a lot of people in sort of a bit of revisionist history about the Reagan years, about everything was terrible, blah blah blah. It's like, well, actually no, a lot of good stuff happened. It's just we take a lot of these good things for granted. So yeah. Atomic Penguin, why were the 1970s so miserable? How did things get better? Well, the 1970s were kind of miserable because a lot of the New Deal era, the policies stopped working. They stopped working. We spent a lot of money on Vietnam, a lot of money on the Great Society programs, or as you'll often hear in a history class, we spent lots of money on both guns and butter. And we pumped a bunch of money into the economy, and then inflation caught up. That's what happened. And inflation got a lot worse after we got off the gold standard. And that's what happened to the 70s. Inflation basically ate away a lot of people's economic prosperity. And things were only got back to normal when people were able to restore confidence in the economy. Part of that had to do with Paul Volcker being appointed as Fed chairman in 1979, and he subsequently raised interest rates, which convinced people that, okay, eventually inflation was going to go down. And then, of course, people underestimate this, but Ronald Reagan's presence in the White House did, in fact, improve investor confidence, far more so than the presence of Nixon, Ford, or Carter. So confidence is a highly underestimated part of how businesses succeed or fail. All right, we got ourselves another super chat from Steven13. How do I deal with pro-Marxist professors in college? Do I try to debate them or ignore them? Well, here's the thing. They are your professors, so you can't ignore them. So you're going to have to work around what they do and say. Basically, in my experience, is that any student to the right of center in a college campus, you have to know your shit. You have to know your subject very, very well. You need to be able to cite chapter and verse why what you're saying is right. You can't just claim something that feels right. It's like your left wing. It's like your left-wing fellow students are going to have a much easier time, but they're also going to end up being less prepared to defend what they believe. And this is how conservative students have survived in progressive college environments for decades. Is that you just have to be more informed than your classmates, and but like I said, but don't be combative with your professors. That's not the right way to go. Don't be combative. It's like, ultimately, you need to know when to pick your battles. Flamingo Cougar, if you had to live in one foreign country, which one would it be? It would have to be an English-speaking one. So that would narrow it down. I'd probably want to try New Zealand, mostly because I have family there, and I wanted to go back for a very long time. I haven't been to New Zealand since the 90s. And I was very young and too young to appreciate the trip at the time. See, Jumpy Killer Rocks, Casual Historian. Then how does He-Man fit? Because wasn't dependent on toy sales? Yes, you're right. He-Man was dependent on toy sales. That doesn't change anything. He-Man just ended up being a series produced. Like, He-Man falls into the same category as G.I. Joe and Transformers. Because G.I. Joe and Transformers, although the stories of those shows were American, they were animated in Japan. And Transformers, of course, the story was created by Americans, but it was inspired by a line of Japanese toys. Timur Emerlenko. Hello, long time no live. Hello, Timur. How are you doing? Let's see. Shen Partey, will we see a new site to replace Twitter like MySpace back in the day? I don't know. Twitter has a lot of staying power. Because a lot of people Twitter has the amazing ability to keep people who hate using it on the website regardless. Because the one thing you see more often on Twitter than anything else is people complaining about Twitter. So, we all have hate relationships with Twitter. Jumpy Killer Ox. How similar was the U.S. post-war to Yugoslavian socialism? I'm not sure. Yugoslavian socialism is not something I've studied too much on. I've heard that there were some important differences to Soviet socialism, but I don't think the differences were enough to make it, too dissimilar. But I don't know. That's something I have to look more into. Let's see, Atomic Penguin. Would you ever move away from California? Where would you go? I would move away from California. Texas would be my first option, but I've never visited Texas for any long periods of time, so I can't say if I would really want to live there year round. Aside from financial ability to move, the biggest thing keeping me in California at the moment, aside from that, is the fact that my family is here. My whole family, both sides of it, are all here, so that's kind of keeping me here. Shen Partey, will you do a video on the Jesus in India or Himalaya story, since it's equally weird as the Jesus in Japan video you did and the history behind it? I actually did a video about Jesus in India, probably a few weeks or a few months after that one. So yeah, I already have a Jesus in India video from back in, I think I put it out in 2020. So yeah, all right, another super chat from Steven. There are many liberal Democrats I know that are sympathetic to socialist policies. Support Biden and Marxism? How could these go together? I find a lot of people support... I find a lot of people who are on within the Democratic Party, a lot of progressives, supports Marxism more in kind of a cultural idea. And I'm not talking about cultural Marxism in the whole, the conspiracy theory kind. I mean, sort of in an intersectionalist kind of way is what they like. They view a lot of things through an intersectionalist lens. And so I think that's why a lot of them support socialistic ideas, if not full-blown, government control of the economy. And Biden is Biden is not a political centrist so much as he is a Democratic Party centrist. As in, he is sort of at the center of the Democratic Party. And so he kind of moves wherever they are. Historical events. Hello there, Super Chat. Amazing channel. Thank you for uploading such wonderful content. What European colonial empire do you find most interesting? Most interesting European colonial empire? Well, the British have kind of had the best results in terms of post-colonial outcomes, but most interesting, I'm very interested in looking at Portugal. Most because Portugal was kind of especially when it came to their African colonies, were just kind of the queens or kings of not letting go. It's Portugal, basically Portuguese colonies were the last ones to truly gain independence. You had Zimbabwe, which gained temporary independence as, Rhodesia, and they formally gained independence in 1980, but they were independent before that under the Rhodesians. But, Yeah, I really want to look more into Portugal. Portugal is what I'm really looking at the moment. Got another super chat from Cold Summer. You mentioned in a video that the BDS movement was anti-Semitic. In what ways is it? I know it's critical of Israel, but that's all I could find out. So there are a number of reasons why BDS movement is considered anti-Semitic, and one big reason is that it holds Israel to a set of standards that it holds no other country to. So if you have to ask, okay, why is BDS holding only Israel to this particular standard? It was like basically Israel's not the only country that does a lot of the things it does, and yet it gets criticized. Not only that, but you look at a bunch of other countries that do things objectively worse than Israel, but you don't hear people calling for boycotting, divesting, or sanctioning them. Saudi Arabia, China, Venezuela are all objectively worse countries to minorities than, Israel, and yet you'd never hear people calling to boycott, divest, or sanction them. So it becomes, well, then the only difference between them and Israel is that Israel is Jewish. And that's why people call it anti-Semitic. Plus, you could also look at the founders of the BDS movement and how they were very openly anti-Semitic. So, yeah, it's anti-Semitic for the same reasons that, Holocaust denial is anti-Semitic. It's like the main supporters you see for it are anti-Semites. Jumpy Killer QX, because it seems intellectually honest, Marxist socialists are gravitating towards some type of Yugoslavian socialism and or robo-socialism. Yeah, I don't know enough about the Yugoslavian stuff to give a solid answer. Shemparte, thanks. There's another story about Jesus allegedly visiting England. That story is just weird as well. Do you have a video on that? Should you make a video on that? I don't have a video on Jesus visiting England. So like I said, yeah, I have the one about Jesus in Japan, and I have one about Jesus in India. I don't have one about Jesus in England yet. I don't know how much source material there is for that one, though, so it's something I'm going to have to look at. The other thing I might be able to connect with it is that in England, there's this very small, Mormon offshoot that claim to have found their own, secret text buried in a hill in Britain, like Jeraneck or something like that, the Book of Jeraneck. It's a very small sect of Mormons in England that claim to have found their own additional text. So I might be able to lump it in with that. So yeah, Steven13, super chat. Cultural Marxism is not a conspiracy. The claim of being a conspiracy is recent. Well, yes and no. There is a conspiracy theory version of it, and that's the big problem with is that when you see someone claiming cultural Marxism is an anti-Semitic dog whistle, they are half right, as in there is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory version of that claim, of use for that term. And that's one of the problems, is that there is a completely legitimate use for the term cultural Marxism, but there's also a conspiracy theory version. And unfortunately, both are being used at the same time. And sometimes critics of one are unaware that the other exists. And sometimes they are aware and they're being, and they're not differentiating because for them it doesn't really matter. So there is a conspiracy theory version of quote-unquote cultural Marxism, as in, people see it as a conspiracy theory, but that's why it's complicated. I've wanted to do a video about it for a while. It just doesn't feel appropriate for the Casual Historian channel. If I do make a video about cultural Marxism, I might make it on my second channel, my personal channel. But yeah, that's for another day. Atomic Penguin, favorite comedian? I don't listen to a lot of comedians anymore. Unfortunately, it's been a long time since I've had one that could genuinely make me laugh. The last ones the last stand-up specials I've genuinely laughed at were either ones from Gabriel Iglesias or Jim Gaffigan. the people whose routines tend not to get political. Fat fella, are you religious? Yes, I am a Missouri Synod Lutheran. Jumpy Killer QX, did Japanese cars have some type of influence on U.S. consumer toward allowing the growth of anime? Not really. Japanese cars got big in the U.S. in the 70s because of the oil crisis. Japanese cars were more fuel efficient because Japanese cars are smaller and lighter. They were more fuel efficient. And during the 1970s oil crisis, when gas prices went up, that's when Japanese cars became more popular in the U.S. It's because they were just more fuel efficient. Let's see, Marcilla Smith would also be anti-Semitic, the BDS movement. BDS... Oh, I see where you're going there, Marcilla. Haha. Alright, got another super chat. Historical events. Do you find the German colonial empire interesting and need more reformer biographies? Luther, Zwingli, Knox. Luther, you're definitely going to get a video on Luther at some point. I'm just waiting for the right moment to do it, probably in a big collaboration. The German colonial empire is interesting. That's the other one I might take a look at because I've heard claims that the German colonial empire actually, a lot of examples for the Holocaust came from, German Southwest Africa, but I don't know enough to definitively confirm any of that at the moment. So that's something I will be looking into. I want to do something on that, but that's going to take a little time. See, Zalmi T, I found you when you streamed with Kirk Wilcox. Love your videos. Well, thank you, Zalmi T. Yeah. Hope to put out more like that in the future. Mason M, I generally support BDS. Not all countries are the center of 3 world religions. Yeah, but why should that mean Israel's treated any differently? Plus, what lines on, how you draw lines between religions also becomes complicated. M. Mason. So yes, the state of Israel is put to a different standard, as in the never again argument. Has nothing to stand on when old Jerusalem has Christians dying on a regular basis. Once again, there's not much evidence for that, but I'm not going to get into this discussion here. I eventually want to do a video on the Israeli-Arab, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but that time is not right now. Flamingo Cougar, do you think the current high gas prices could cause a similar push towards electric vehicles? I don't know. The problem with electric vehicles is that they're still really expensive. It's like a low end electric vehicle right now costs about $30,000 right now. That's a low end electric vehicle. And most people aren't going to spend that much on a car, especially right now. And plus, it doesn't really help the fact that, a lot of these power plants that would be powering these cars are powered by, coal power or other fossil fuel type powers. So it kind of defeats the purpose, or not much better. I still support electric vehicles, but I just don't think the price point is at a good place right now to replace regular vehicles. All right, calling it a night, Shen Partey. All right, well, good night, Shen. Have a wonderful evening. Stephen 13, terms like misinformation, our democracy are being used extensively. This seems like a 1984 style propaganda campaign. Well, here's the thing you really do need to keep in mind about all of this, there is in fact misinformation. There are people misusing the issue of misinformation. There are people who are abusing that term. So democracy and misinformation, yes, they can be abused, similar to how, terms like fascist and racist can be abused. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't actual fascists and racists out there, but when people overuse a term, people start to take it less seriously. A boy who cried wolf type effect, if you will. Jumpy. All right. Flamingo Cougar. They're only that expensive if you want a Tesla. Nissan and Chevy have very well priced EVs. I haven't looked too much into them, but even then, I think another bigger issue is just the fact that there aren't a lot of charging stations, or at least there aren't enough electric vehicle charging stations around the country. It's like, I've seen some electric vehicles around the place where I live in Central California, even some Teslas, but you don't have much in the way of Tesla charging stations. So I'm guessing most of those people charge their vehicles at home, which means you won't be able to get very far. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. Philippe Garcia, after your vid on the Congo, what's your opinion on Patrice Lumumba? Yeah, so for those who may not have seen, I did a video on the Congolese, on the Congo crisis, the civil war that took place in the Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, after they gained independence. Patrice Lumumba was its first prime minister, and it feels like he was kind of, in large part, I think he was a guy who was kind of like out of his depth. Like, the guy was really young. He was in his early 30s, and I think that's kind of too young to be a head of state or a head of government. And so, yeah, I think he was mostly the wrong person for the wrong time. And also, and since he was the wrong person for the wrong time, I think he gravitated towards certain foreign actors who made the situation worse. Steven13, you live in California, please be careful of Antifa. Antifa's not the huge widespread thing you think, because, like, here's the thing. Something to realize, California is a really big state. Okay? And although you'll find people who identify with Antifa all over the place, I live in the Central Valley. The Central Valley is a fairly red part of California. It's Central Valley and then, like, the San Diego area, and that's where you have most of the red places. That and some, like, Northern California, that and a part of Northern California that's, like, right along the border with Oregon. Let's see. Atomic Penguin. Did Allende have Soviet ties? Was Chile better under Pinochet? I don't have enough information to answer either of those questions, I'm afraid. I want to make a video about that, but I have to do more research. Let's see. Zalmi T, do you know Sam Aronow? I know Sam Aronow. We've talked a bit, yeah. We've talked. He's provided a little voice work for one of my videos in the past. So, yeah, we know each other. Let's see. Forza Jersey, we need to develop biogasoline and biodiesel. There are 280 million gas diesel vehicles in the U.S. Electric vehicles would take 42 years to decarbonize our auto fleet. Biofuels are better than EVs. I don't know enough about the science to say that for certain. I think more important than... Basically, I'd say we really need to improve our power generation to make electric vehicles really the silver bullet solution that we want them to be. Like, we need a lot more nuclear energy, I think. Like, we really do need more nuclear energy if we want electric vehicles to be the real solution to any of these problems involving climate change and the economy. Atomic Penguin, do you know JJ McCullough? I do know JJ McCullough. I've met the guy a couple years ago at VidCon. He's done some voice work for my videos. I've done some voice work in his. He's featured one of my videos in one of his from a few years ago about politics at VidCon. So yeah, I'm familiar with JJ. Let's see. All right. Well, you know what? We've been on here for about an hour and a half now, so I think I am going to call it for an evening. So thank you all so much for joining me this evening, watching the, going through the audience survey. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time. When exactly that is? Well, I will be streaming on Twitch this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hopefully I'll have the audio problem all fixed right from the very beginning. I will be watching some neo-Nazi propaganda on Twitch this Wednesday. Europa, The Last Battle. I'm going to be reacting / debunking the video as I watch it, or at least the first part of it. It's like, there's like 10 parts and it's like nearly 12 hours of content. So, yeah. So, join me on Wednesday on Twitch for that. Thank you all very much for watching once again, and I will see you then.